welcome you all to this panel discussion. Actually, it is a very prominent, eminent panel discussion on EV supply chain, managing metals, electronics, and global shocks. Depending on the kind of current geopolitical situation these days, I have an eminent panel here. Uh, I would like to emphasize that over the last few years, industry has faced several global disruptions from Okay. Uh, Over the past few years, industry has faced several global disruptions from semiconductor shortages to volatility in battery materials. What lessons has the industry learned about building more resilient supply chains? I will start with you first.
I come from the recycling background, sir. So, uh, as they say, that we are the cure. Yeah, there has been shortages in the system, and largely coming in from the geopolitical shocks and concentration of capabilities into few geographies, and that kind of builds the for India, and I'll be very, very specific to India here, that when you look at EV vehicles, particularly the two, three wheelers, you see that the batteries account for as much as 50-55% of the cost of the the electric vehicle. So, and that is where the concentration is. It is into critical minerals, it is into the cell capabilities, and not so much in the other aspects, which can very well be tackled in India and we have been doing that for so many years. So, yes, it is threatening, and I can only say that in India, EVs will grow. Yes, they will. The question is whether they will grow with independence and where will the material come from. Because otherwise, we are just looking at moving in from one dependence on oil to dependence on critical metals. And the industry cannot be sustainable till you have, and the bottleneck is the time. Maybe in a 5 to 10 year horizon, you will find that we can have mining assets created. Maybe 10 to 15 years it takes to create a mining asset. So in the short run till 30-35, recycling is your finest bet, apart from sourcing from outside to reduce your import bills. That's what I see.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Subrato here from Aether. So my view on this entire geopolitics and the crisis is this has happened in the past, it will happen in the future. Public memory tends to be short. 1960s, India did not have enough food. You can ask your parents and grandparents. Ships used to carry foreign food grains. PL65, I remember, those wheat used to come to India. It got distributed. Then India solved the food grain problem. Moved to the milk crisis, milk shortage, then you had Operation Flood. And I can go on, you know. World witnessed oil shocks multiple times. It got addressed. If you look at financial crisis, semiconductors, now you are saying there is an excess supply of semiconductors, it fixed. So I am pretty optimistic that every time there is a crisis there, you will have responsible and innovative players, innovative nation states who will address that problem. Yes, it will have some interim shocks, but then they overcome. Either you will have new materials, new source of supply, or some new technology which will come and address it. But what India needs to, I think, clearly do is that, see, this trend of transitioning to EV, at least in the, what I call in the light electric category, is here to stay. We have seen the huge success in three-wheelers, and we are seeing that clear trend in two-wheelers. The total cost of ownership, that is fairly established. The supply chain will automatically get created once the volumes increase. And I think I clearly Here, government has a huge role to play. All they have to do is look at how you can expand the manufacturing capacity in the country of the vehicles. Once that base increases, automatically all the other components, tier 1, tier 2, your value chains, your ecosystem, they fall in place. With a small base, creating such a supply chain is difficult, it is expensive. But as the base increases, is that, and for that matter, you see the two-wheeler base in India. India as a nation produces 2 crore two-wheelers for domestic and exports. We don't hear there is any problem in that segment because there is enough capacity and the value system is created. Hence, I'm confident that if the electric vehicle numbers increase from where we are today to say a 3x or a 5x jump, I don't think we will be discussing this at this kind of as a crisis.
Thank you and good afternoon, everyone. This is Pavandeep. I represent Atero. We are into the recycling of lithium-ion batteries and electronic waste. Looking at the scenarios of an electric vehicle, it does not, and not even talking about the aspect of only the critical metals, there are multiple more rare earth metals also included in the electric vehicles. For example, the neodymiums and the other aspects. And if you have been reading the news, there has been a lot of geopolitical issues related to the supply of critical metals. I agree that the demand would increase in the due course of time, but there is an abundance capability on the Indian aspect where we can develop our own supply chains through the aspect of recycling these critical and rare earth metals through the feedstock which is available in the country. Looking at the scenarios, the most important aspect which is affecting our country is the collection of this material, subsequently doing a mechanical recycling and sending the product which is with the critical metals and rare earth metals out of the country, which affects the GDP of the country, subsequently the supply chain and the other aspects. So I foresee there is a huge way where the development can happen. The recycling is an important aspect, as Bhuvan stated, till the time we do not start doing the mining in our country, the mines what we have found. Because in India there is no cobalt, no lithium mines as on date or nickel mines which are present from where we can extract these products and subsequently include them in our supply chain. The most important aspect is the neodymium magnets. It is a big issue on the geopolitical issue right now where each and every country is suffering on those aspects. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So I think as an OEM, when we look at our customer base, so we see a lot of responsibility on our shoulders. Having developed hundreds of dealerships across the country, so I think with the increasing demand, so we should be able to cater to the requirements of our dealerships and customers. So, the two-wheeler industry, we are already at almost 7-8% penetration as we talk now. The three-wheeler, if we exclude the L3, so we are approximately 30%, including L3, we are around 50%. So I think we already reached at a point where there is no, point looking back. But I think to cover the balance 90% market for two-wheelers and even 70% market for three-wheelers is not going to be that easy unless until, we sort out all the issues related to supply chain. And I, agree with Pavandeep ji also. What we need to build is, first of all, reduce, minimize, and, eventually eliminate our dependence on, the foreign countries for sourcing these vehicles. So that is not easy. A country like China who controls, more than 70 to 80% of, the mining and more than 80% of refining of this critical metals. So to develop those capability overnight will not be easy. But we see, very positive signals, in fact, in this union budget also. So government, allocating some corridors where actually we can start, extraction of these vehicles, minerals. So I think we are on the right path. But I think the road ahead will not be that easy because we have to, still cover, as sir rightly said, we do around 2.5 crore two-wheelers. To reach to that level requires very, very seamless, supply chain. So developing those corridors where we can extract metals, where we can refine those metals, we should have, very, very efficient circular economy working because the batteries coming back, we can able to, extract those metals with those batteries with, credible people like Atero. So all those combinations will definitely, take us through. But the road is difficult, it is challenging, but with all those, positive signals crossed, I think we are on the right path. That is my take on this.
I think the National Critical Mineral Mission and the 16,000 crore that has been allotted would go a long way in this.
Yes. Yeah.
The government also has taken note of it. I believe that is why I think it will improve from now.
Absolutely, sir. So we were actually very nervous on, having all the battery cells from outside. So we saw that getting sorted in the last 1 year, the prices also came down. But then, came another shock when, all those critical, metals used in the PMSM motors. So those were not available. So we also need to look at, different technologies like, synchronous reluctant motors just to reduce that dependency. Yeah, so it has been, a tough journey, but, challenging, but I think definitely as a country we are going to overcome that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Vineet Mishra. I am heading the purchasing operation at Suzuki Motorcycle India. It is my pleasure to meet you all here. So I think your question was mostly on the semiconductor. I think the OEM, the people who are making the four-wheeler, two-wheeler, or majorly on the vehicle manufacturing, we have learned a good amount of lesson while having the such kind of difficulties during starting from the COVID era. Semiconductor was one of the biggest challenge what the OEM has faced it. I should not say maybe EV still has to come long, but the semiconductor in what way it has been went, it has given the big lessons to the OEM, how the supply chain has to be made more robust. So I tell you, sir, in the semiconductor area, in the initial timing, when this kind of difficulty has come, the lesson, whatever we have got it, it is something like this. Our connect always is there with the tier 1 industries, not to the level of tier 2 and tier 3. Semiconductor is one of the biggest industry, though they come with the tier 2 and tier 3, but OEM has learned that without reaching to the tier 2 and tier 3 supply chain robust, we cannot say about that. So with this situation, I should tell that the OEMs, maybe like Suzuki, it may be the others also, we have established the one-to-one connect with these kind of semiconductor suppliers. And today, I should say that no of the semiconductor supplier does not know the OEM directly. That is the one biggest change what we made it. Sometimes we know that in the industry, such a big kind of suppliers, our maybe the tier 1 itself cannot able to handle it. So we have to come forward as a OEM, we have to lead, we have to give our trust, and with that basis, certain kind of these engagement has helped to the OEM to have the supply chain, this kind of disruption to resolve it. Second, in the semiconductor itself, today we know that every new development, whatever we have to do it, it does not go with the situation, the old pattern, whatever we have followed, we should continue in the same way. Any new development, new designs, we don't only depend on the one kind of the semiconductor. In the development phase itself, we monitor the alternate, we monitor the situation, whether the development timing itself, we take the kind of 2 approvals, and in case one situation comes to the fail, we go to the alternate without having the second kind of the evaluation during the running the mass production. This is the second what we did it. And third, in the semiconductor area, is the end of life. When the COVID problem was there and semiconductor challenge was running, and we went to the suppliers, and suppliers said that the product life is already been over. We have to invest into the new things, and on the new things, new generations, only production will be done, which will be needed for the long run. So today, when we deploy such kind of thing, we always consider the end of the product, end of the life of the particular semiconductor. That also we considered. And fourth, which is the kind of very important, the kind of long-term contract we make with the suppliers. And with long-term contracts, we have the surety that with the kind of 2 years, let us say, with the confirmed purchase order, there is no kind of the disturbance what we feel it will come in that. Now, with such a learning, which is very much important, it will go in the EV also. EV also has a certain components like a magnet, like a cells. Unless and until such kind of the learning we don't deploy into such kind of the EV. Today market is growing, EV will evolve with the time, but unless we take such a measures what we learned in semiconductor, EV we cannot say that supply disruption is being resolved. We have to go along. Maybe 3 or 4 years is too less. Something more the hard work which we will do it. Maybe today with all people who are sitting here, we will have a good debate and we will understand from each other in the EV how to make supply chain more robust and more stronger. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pranshu. So we are a tier 1 manufacturer of electronic components for OEMs. In the past 5-6 years, there are 3 crises related to semiconductors. There was a chip shortage during COVID. Then there was a rare earth metals shortage, and currently, as we speak, there is a memory chips shortage. So the chip shortage in COVID, everybody knows that. We also were facing the same. We had purchase orders in place with the distributors, which were loaded onto the manufacturers. But Indians being Indians, the distributor would get our allocation and give it to some other customer. We had to pay premium prices, sometimes out of our own pocket. Sometimes when the OEM customer was nice enough to us, they would approve a one-time purchase on premium prices. We had to pay for premium freight. They said, well, I don't have your material in the India warehouse, it is in the North America warehouse. First it has to go to Europe, then it has to go to Hong Kong or Singapore, then it will come here, and if you pay for all of that, we'll get you your material. So we did all of that. Rare earth, we were not really involved, but OEMs had that issue, and because of that we were given higher guidance, but the material that was picked up, the GRNs were lower, so that affected us from a revenue perspective, and we had excess stock. And currently, the memory crisis. The memory chips, because of AI, those are the high-performing, high-margin products, so a lot of automotive components use the slower DDR2 and 3 RAMs, whereas AI servers use DDR5 RAMs. And the memory manufacturers would rather manufacture DDR5 and sell it to NVIDIA and other companies than sell the slower, cheaper memory chips to companies like ours. So there is a set supply, everybody has a set of production lines. And so the prices of memory that we put in our electronic components has gone up anywhere from 300 to 700%. Now, when we go to an OEM and we say, the price has gone up so much, it opens up a whole new discussion in terms of PO, revising the PO. Earlier, the chip shortage was transient, and you asked for 1-time or 2-time price increases, one for the purchase, premium purchase. But now there is no end to this right now. So the industry as a whole is suffering, and EV is full of electronics, so it's suffering badly.
That's nice. Another question was that for established OEMs, integrating new technologies while maintaining quality safety standards is a complex task. How are manufacturers managing this balance as electrification accelerates? I'll start. you, sir.
I'm afraid I'm not an OE, so I'll pass.
No, it's okay.
Purely from the electric two-wheeler perspective, I think the way we look at it, India has significant strengths compared to the large global manufacturing hubs. EVs, unlike ICE, has a huge amount of hardware, firmware, software, connectivity. And those are some inherent strengths that India has made over the last 30, 40 years. And that is actually reflecting in the kind of design, in the kind of electric two-wheelers at least which are coming out of India across different players. And I can confidently tell you that you just go on the internet, put any of the leading Indian electric two-wheeler, compare it with their global peers, take the performance ratio, the data will speak for itself. So from a EV design innovation and this new technology adoption, it's a clear advantage. And we can, for example, clearly see Bengaluru, which is known as the Silicon Valley or where the tech happens. So many EV companies or their EV R&D centers are there because that's where the talent lies in terms of firmware, software, hardware. This talent is actually benefiting EVs. I think so that integration is, relatively, and plus because of the, it's not that India is making auto today. Please understand, India has a legacy of many decades of automotive manufacturing, both domestic companies as well as MNCs. And with that experience in the background, plus the expertise that India has, you will see across the board, at least in electric two-wheelers, you have multiple OEMs, legacy players, startups, different make are able to offer to the consumer. And this trend will continue. Obviously, you will see more and more adoption of new technologies come in. We are seeing things like ADAS and four-wheelers, see how it has evolved. So more and more technologies will come in and that will get adopted. Yes, the pace of innovation and design, what used to happen in automotive earlier or what was the traditional way of making it, I think that has got shaken up. Today, the consumer also demands a much, different or revised or an improved offering. There's a significant competition, so they are responding to that. So I think as OEMs, you will see that response, and you just take the EV evolution in terms of new models, say, which is happening in China, and compared to what is happening in ICE, is again a clear example that how, because of these multiple new technologies in the vehicle, the innovation is happening much faster. And obviously enabled with AI, 3D printing and lot of allied new innovations which are happening, your ability to respond back with the new offering to the consumer, take their feedback, that loop has become much shorter. Today you're able to do it much better.
Thanks. I'll put a perspective over here which is not more related to the EV designs, but more related to the circularity aspect. See, day by day there are more and more critical metals and the supply chain issues are there. We work with multiple of OEMs where we give them a feedback how a product has to be designed, which is much more easier to recycle, and that can improve their supply chain also, where we can supply back the metals to them. It may be a critical rare earth metal which they can utilize in their supply chain. For example, the lithium carbonate, what we develop is a battery grade quality which can be further utilized to create a new cell. Similar way, there are a lot of companies which utilize multiple aspect of products in their supply chain. One of the examples would be the LTO battery, that is lithium titanium oxide battery. There are, I would say, in my knowledge, none of the recycler who is able to recycle a LTO battery and extract lithium and titanium oxide out of it, and subsequently that too of battery grade quality and supply it back to the OEM. So it is more of a circular economy which is prevailing now and which would be coming in the time frame, rather than the linear economy which was there in the previous time frame because of the compliances, because of the supply chain risk and multiple other factors.
Thank you, sir. आई थिंक सर एक बड़ी फेमस अभी एक सेइंग भी चल रही है जिसको हम बोलते हैं आपदा में अवसर. So that is, what we also, started thinking that how to, create an opportunity when we are facing these challenges. And believe me, we could do it. We when we faced, I think last year, June, July time frame, all these geopolitical related issues of, these permanent magnets. So we very, very quickly switched to the synchronous reluctant motors, which actually don't use these rare earth magnets. And I actually agree with your points when we actually start to redesign a product. So what is most important? I think starts with safety, performance, reliability, pricing, and obviously, a very, very efficient supply chain. And we could find that all these basic 4 or 5 parameters are getting met. Though there are some, smaller issues in terms of, going back to the drawing board, doing all those mechanical fitments in your vehicles, right? These motors generally are a bit, higher in weight as compared to, the permanent magnet motors, but that is fine. But in return, you are getting a lot of advantages. The supply chain is efficient, the pricing is fine, right? So I think this is how an OEM should take an approach, right? The second thing is use technology. When actually you start developing a new product. So today with the, all those technologies, we have all the components within the vehicles who are talking to each other. The batteries talk to motors, motors talk to chargers, and then all these vehicles are connected to the external world also. Use this technology, get all those, relevant features enabled in your batteries, motors, try to figure out when a vehicle is going to break down, right? So that actually helps you to build or redesign your vehicles efficiently and increase a lot of confidence in the entire ecosystem, right? And that is what we could do as an OEM in the last couple of
That's
months.
very nice.
Pardon me, sir?
I said, that's very nice.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Right. So once again, so actually the question belongs to the OEM. EV, it's something like is a new technology, and new technology has to come with the right quality and safety. As a OEM, we are responsible for making the safe product, qualitative product, which can meet the customer expectation very well. So here it starts with the kind of the platform, the design. There are various designs are there where people are moving from center mounted motor to the hub wheel motor to the side mounted motor. But it depends upon the OEM, what OEM choose, which is more safer, more better in terms of performance. So that is the first criteria. OEM has to come out that the EV, we cannot say that it is a easy product. Many of the situation we have seen in the past where a lot of the things went wrong with the EV itself. So the design is most important. And those concept has to come very kind of in a very strong way that OEM should believe that the names whatever has comes maybe from the bigger OEMs, it is the kind of trust in the design it is coming. That is the one. Second, we know that some of the people has said for the battery, which is the heart of the vehicle itself. In place of engine, battery is there. So battery has to be more safer. It has to be more kind of qualitative thing. And when we say that it is a safer in terms of design, the battery management system, the cell chemistry, the testing, how the battery is being validated, all those things are very much kind of important to say that vehicle is kind of qualitative or in terms of safer in design. So OEM generally has to take care about this, which is not an easy thing, which is a typical in situation, and the people today talks about the various cell technologies, NMC or something like this. However, there are the LFP, which we understand that much more safer in terms of design and much more reliable for the long run itself. So that is the second point. Third point is the robust supplier partners. The EV only depend upon the EV today, only on the OEMs is very difficult to say that. Supplier partners, the peoples who are from Denso, from Bosch, these are the bigger partners in the supply chain, also has to come forward for the kind of co-development which build the trust and the quality. So, robust supply chain has to be taken care, which ensure the right development, which ensure the right quality by following the maybe APQP or the PPAP process. With that, the development has to be done. Then, fourth is the OEM, the testing and the design validation. Today, word has come to the various digital kind of simulation and the physical validation based on that. Today, the parts being digitally verified first, whether it is meeting the requirement or not. OEMs are well equipped with that today with that technology, where the detail in the way of various simulation parameters, the parts are being tested, physically validated, and then it has to be only used in the EV environment. And after having the launch or the SOP start of the EV, our responsibility does not go with that. It is something like this in the field, we get a certain kind of the issue, certain problem, which has to be updated in the running environment also. And with that, lot of the, like using the OTA or something with the features, with the capable software, we understand the situation, performance of the EV, and based on that, on the air through the application, we do the certain updates and ensure that customer do not face any kind of the challenges in terms of safety and quality. So these are the certain kind of technologies thing which OEM, responsible OEM has to take care, and we believe that with the EV such transition will happen with the time. Thank you.
So I just want to touch on the last point which Mr. Mishra mentioned, which is updates and safety aspect. So as a supplier of electronic components, we have something called OTA, over-the-air upgrades. And our device is the only one that has a connectivity to the outside world because it is an IoT device. So there is, we are able to update the software of everything else in the vehicle, the BMS, the ECU, everything else, even the cluster, through our device. So our device will download the software for all of these other subsystems and flash the software update. If there's a failure, report it back to the OEM. So this is just one additional check that OEMs are employing to make sure that, if there are later, once customers start using the vehicles and there are some bugs that are noticed in the software, because these are still newer technologies, there is a way to update them remotely. The old way was the vehicle has to come back to the showroom. It has to get flashed physically in the laptop. Customers may or may not come back. And then if there is an accident or whatever, who's liable? If it's a serious problem. But this is, with the newest technologies, an easier way to remotely update and possibly prevent or reduce the number of recalls.
That's nice. Acha, this brings me to another point, is that procurement and supplier networks are rapidly evolving. Procurement and supplier networks are evolving rapidly. This brings on to my next question, what is it just now? What new capabilities are companies building to manage these risks more effectively? Any starting from
So, there are a lot of things we have to do. One, because again, we are all about electronic components, we have to maintain high levels of inventory. We try to maintain at least 1 to 2 months of inventory for all the components. Some are really long lead time components, 16 weeks and all. So those we have to procure in advance. Some of the other ones are locally available, so we are able to solve them. But it is a evolving industry, and the problems are also evolving along with it. Indo-China relationship to a certain extent adds to that problem. The geopolitical today with all these tariffs by the US, the Indo-China relationships are better. So that helps us in terms of managing supply chain, in terms of, easier access to components, which sometimes, for example, customs duty on some of these electronic components is up to 28%. So all of these are costs, and there are, you can buy it from a distributor who may or may not declare it properly. Some companies buy directly. But all of these are strategies that somebody has to, the supply chain or the tier 1 partners have to take into account, or even the tier 2 partners, to ensure that there is enough stock within the country for if there is a change in the requirements from the OEM.
Okay, so as we said that as we discussed in the earlier part, that semiconductor itself was a biggest challenge during that time. So in the EV also, such kind of things are there, where with the learning of semiconductor, like multi-sourcing. In the EV also, we have to see that there should be a various kind of the multi-sourcing option. We know that we have faced a recent challenge in the kind of rare earth magnet also. So only dependent on the one country is also the one of the risk. So with that, maybe in the last 1 year, we have seen that there are the certain more potential sources are available. And if we go with those situation, maybe the supply chain de-risking can be done, and a certain that capabilities has to be developed. Second, EV has to be more affordable with the time, and affordability will come with the kind of localization, because in the EV there is a lot of the scope is still exists where the localization we should able to push more and more, and with that affordability also will come, supply de-risking also will happen, and with those situation we can make it better. Third is the kind of where the critical materials are there may be used for the cell manufacturing. It will take its own time to localize such a kind of minerals, materials at the India. But however, those minerals also like a semiconductor, long term, some kind of the partnership we should establish as an industry in the India situation. And with that, localization has to be promoted. So these are the certain measures. Unless and until we learn about that, these problems will not come out with that. Semiconductor has given a good learning. I am sure that with the localization, maybe in the EV, localization within 2-3 years or the span of 5 years, it is an ambitious target, but I don't say that it is not realistic. If we work with the certain things, maybe in a first step with the localization of assemblies and sub-assemblies, we can able to promote in the short span of 3 and 5 years. Down the level of critical raw material where the minerals has to be localized, it will take its own time. Some of our colleagues has talked about the recycling also. Recycling is one of the major thing which we have to promote here in the India, where the import dependency we can reduce, we can optimize the cost also, and we can able to de-risk the supply chain. These are the certain measures as a OEM we are thinking about that, and we are working on that.
Sir, I think as an OEM, so I think what is most important is, how do we get all those critical components, right, in terms of the numbers and how fast we get it, right? So I think the most important development which needs to take place is, development of your child part suppliers, around your manufacturing facilities. That is what, we have also experimented, and that is what we are trying to do. Just ensuring that, we have, the right percentage of the share which we demand from them, and then we get all those components very, very quickly from them. That is one. The second thing is, when we talk about, the critical components, the bigger components like motor and, the batteries which need to be assembled. So we would like all our suppliers to do that assembly part, right, or that manufacturing part within our manufacturing units, right? So that brings, a lot of, or that actually eliminates a lot of anxiety in terms of whether you will get those critical components on time or not, and obviously in the quantities which you want. So I think this is how in EVs we are trying to develop that ecosystem with our suppliers, giving them confidence. And I think one thing which is extremely important is to have, I would say, long-term contracts with them. No one will agree to manufacture a battery or a motor within your premises once you have those, long-term contracts with actually go beyond, couple of years, right? So those kind of measures are extremely important, when we start, meeting that scale which we intend to do, and, bringing all the ecosystem players together, right?
So I don't belong to the OEM industry, but I belong to the recycling industry. And the biggest pain point in the recycling industry is the reverse logistics. That is the collection of the feedstock. It's the biggest pain point over here. And with the learning and the experience of ours in the industry being 18 years over there, we have developed multiple apps which are related to a D2C app, which is called SellSmart. SELSMART, where any consumer from the comfort of their home can dispose of an electronic device where our representative would come and collect that material. This is all a prospective which is driven by an AI program. You know, the AI is the in thing as on date. It helps on the multiple aspects, and one of the aspect is reduction of your overheads. Similar way, there is a lot of tracking and traceability which is required. What is happening to a battery, a specific battery collected from a specific location, how it is moving. Our solutions, another solution which is called Metal Mundi, helps you track from the end to end the movement of your stock which is given to Atero. The feedstock movement with the complete compliance on the financial aspect, regulations, all is catered into. So yes, the supply chain aspects, the reverse logistics can be improved, and further improvements are possible depending upon how you utilize different kind of programs, softwares which are available in the market. Thanks.
On the supply chain vulnerability, right? This was on the supply chain diversification and the vulnerability. So I think if you take in the last 10 years, there is a growing change. What we are seeing worldwide after crisis, it started with COVID predominantly. What medicine is there? What kind of medical equipments are there? Nation states started looking not just what is available with the government. The private sector was deeply engaged, and then they looked at it as a comprehensively within the country, what is available, what is not, and if things have to be imported, where they are coming from, and so on. I think that is something with the current crisis again in the West. I think it's an opportunity for both the government and the industry to sit together and plan. Because ability expecting a complete supply chain resilience to be done by one individual company in an evolving industry, I think is an unfair expectation. Industry will do. Industry, I'm sure every company, every industry will try to do that. But then that is where you need the government to come together and see how we can plan. I'm not talking on the context just along the rare earth magnet or in the context of cell. For that matter, LPG. We were dependent on that. What will be our? How do you expect the next crisis it comes? How do you mitigate? Do you push the people onto induction? Do you create more storage facilities, or do you create more LPG production facilities? Now, this is something where it has to be set and thought through. All that I'm saying is that this is an opportunity where we should take on that, okay, if we have to meet our EV transition targets of 2030, 2047, so on, this is the kind of supply chain that will be needed. Obviously, option one will be everything will try to do it within the country. Well, let's also be realistic sometimes that you will have interdependencies. How do we ensure that interdependencies are not limited to one country? We spread it across the world, not just depending on 2-3 countries. Also now, is it depending on certain access routes, whether it is Strait of Malacca, Strait of Hormuz, Panama Canal. If you have been following the news, some of the shipping companies are avoiding Panama Canal, so your containers will now go all over the South American continent. So these trends are going to continue. Question is that how we, along with the government, the industry, not just the auto, I'm sure it will be our component suppliers, the electronics, the chemical industry who will be involved in others, raw material supply, that how do we have a mitigation plan at the national level? And obviously, again, I'll reiterate, expecting an industry or a particular individual company to do, individual companies will do it as part of the risk mitigation plan. I'm sure your boards will be having those questions much before the governments are, and obviously companies are responding to that. But at a comprehensive, at a national level, if you are able to come up with that, that will actually benefit, because that will also identify the opportunities where we need to next emphasize in terms of our either manufacturing capacities, greenfield manufacturing capacities, or innovation, or those are the areas that which is a very clear identified gap where as a nation we need to ramp up. And as a company which is, evolved as a startup, let me assure you some of the innovations, especially during times of crisis, you will find some of the startups or the innovation which have come from universities of labs have actually broken through the traditional way of approaching a challenge or a solution. And I think EV worldwide is a classic example of that. Any part of the world, whether it's China, US, India and all, you'll find the startup ecosystem as beacon. You are seeing it in some of the new AI trends which are happening. You are seeing it in biotech, pharma and all. This trend will continue. And that's the way I believe we have to go forward. And I'm completely confident India has the capacity. We have the technical know-how. I don't think we have today a challenge or a dearth of financial capital, say what was say 20 or 30 years back. Fortunately, our domestic market is one of the largest in the world, because that's always a challenge. Who will consume if I manufacture? India itself is such a large market. All that it needs is an enabling policy by the government and a long-term consistency. Everyone has spoken about, can we have a long-term contract with a supplier? Do we have a long-term visibility into what the GST rates and other rates will be? If we have a long-term contract, say with an international supplier, we need to have a lot of consistency also into our policy, so that a forward-looking crystal gazing can be done. If things keep changing, then your perspective also is that you will have those clauses. Okay, if there is a change, then I'll relook into it. The more ifs are there in such a contract, everyone tries to pad and efficiency gets hurt in that process. So long-term planning, aided by, even if our policy has a long-term consistency on that, I think so will make the entire difference.
Well, that's a very interesting point you brought there, that any kind of supply vulnerabilities have to be looked at from the national level also, and not just as industry level. But considering, the way we look at from the recycling desk, which is the other side of the EV, so we look at it in three different ways. One is to look at things internally and say, how flexible are you to a supply chain shock? And what makes you flexible? What can you do to make yourself flexible? So, for instance, Europe does not allow you to have a certain waste input which you need to recycle. Or tomorrow, some other movement stops, and India doesn't have enough waste for you to recycle. So one very big area which we invest in is R&D. So we have invested into a global capability center where we are looking at devising methods to ensure extraction of metals, minerals and critical metals through multiple processes, through multiple ways, so that the same technology can be applied to different sources. So that's kind of making your own process a little bit more flexible to the kind of input that you can take. The second is to look outward and say that what are the alternatives we are creating. And in that, you can look at deepening, number of places from which, or broad basing your risk of supply is second thing that we work on. So if I'm trying to address a larger geography when I'm sourcing my material. The third is deepening the relationships with the parties involved. And it may not be only in the form of contracts, but actually going and investing into key strategic supply sources. So in our case, we have invested into a battery intelligence company, because we see that down the 3 years or 4 years, we will have a lot of LFP batteries coming in from the industry, which will need repurposing. And we as chemical company or a recycling company do not have that competence. So we have invested into a battery intelligence company, We've invested into a kind of a, test company which does pilot testing to ensure that they deliver the goods and also market it. So finally, it's about actually looking beyond your geography and still feeding the geography. My main recycling setup for Rubabin, which is 40 years into hydrometallurgy, is in India. It's a 100-acre green recycling complex which works with zero waste, zero discharge, complete circularity. So that becomes the mothership. But can I go out and acquire stake into companies which are generating the materials that I need so that it can be brought here after one processing and recycled out of the core competence that resides in our. So these are some of the ideas from our desk, as if I can tell.
That's nice. Acha, I have a discussion going quite well. I wanted to ask many more questions, but now I'm just clubbing two questions together. As more EV startups enter the market, what are the biggest supply supply chain challenges that typically encounter during the early stages of scaling? That is question one. And question two is, looking ahead to 2030, what will define a truly resilient supply chain for India, and what capabilities must the industry start building today?
That's again majorly geared towards the EV supply chain. So I will let it pass for them. Can you
See, the startups are going to accelerate the EV adoption, very clear. The trend was started by startups even in India, scooter segment. One of the reason why you see not much of action happening in the motorcycles and other segment where we need is that we need a level playing field so that more startups can enter the space. They are able to invest in R&D, innovation and that's where we believe that existing government schemes like Auto PLI must be made open to all startups who are in this space so that they are able to access that and able to move forward. See, as far as supply chain is concerned, I am a firm believer. Today we are producing 1.5 to 1.8 million electric two-wheelers. You will create only that much of supply chain for that. It will be very difficult to make a supply chain without the OEM base and expect that these components will make it here competitively and go to, see, the number one player who makes electric two-wheelers is China. Almost 7.5, 8 million vehicles. I cannot understand if our strategy is that we will make components, competitive components here, export them to China, and the Chinese OEMs will use those components effectively. It is, see, that model worked when we are exporting it to, say, US, Europe, when they were making it in their ICE vehicles. But now the game has changed, now in ICE. So I am a very clear believer that you have to expand the OEM base in the country. Whether it is EVs, whether it is smartphones and all. Once the OEM base increases, same scenario, you take 1.5, 1.8 million vehicles, imagine a scenario of 7.5 to 8 million electric two-wheelers. The OEM, the supply chain base, the recycling base, suddenly our entire language, the body language of the industry will change because now you are looking at a different scale together. Your cost of logistics, cost of transportation, the amount of money that you will give for incoming and outgoing, whether it is shipping or any kind of transportation, they all cascade down because now it's on a much larger scale. So I think our entire endeavor that if you are committed, yes, EV is the way to go and we need to do the transition is that how do we increase this base from whatever number it is, and I'm sure this will apply for all categories, two-wheeler, three-wheeler, four-wheeler. Once the base increases, and there we can take the learning from ICE, or go back say 1980 and see the see the four-wheeler industry in India. I'm just giving you, say, pre-Maruti Suzuki and see what it is today. 45 years journey. Not a long term when you take the journey of a large nation state, 45 years, but see where we are today. And that's the reason I'm extremely confident that what it took us 45 years, then we can do it now in a decade or decade and a half once we expand the base. Once we expand the base, automatically the entire pyramid starts building in and then that creates the momentum to to just keep becoming bigger. And same thing was done by, you can take some of the large auto industries, how they became export houses, whether it was Germany or Japan. Then Korea emulated that model. China replicated that model in EV. And I see no reason why we can't or we shouldn't be able to just do that and accelerate much higher, taking advantage of both of our domestic, such a large market, and with the demographic dividend that we have in terms of at least the forecasted GDP growth, at least till 2047.
I would like to add in this that the entire ecosystem requires a lot of development. The ecosystem is not only limited to the OEMs or the recyclers. There has to be gigafactories, there has to be precursors. I'll just give you one insight on a simple example. Today, any product what we produce, may it be lithium carbonate, cobalt, nickel, it is traded on the Shanghai Metal Index or London Metal Index. We by ourselves do not, as on date, have these listed on the MCX. I think so the first aspect would be that we list such kind of metals and those are viable and traded with the tax regime of the country in the country itself. Subsequently, if you foresee what happens if we produce a metal of battery grade, still we have to export it out of the country because we do not have any precursors. So there is lot of room, there is lot of development which is required in the entire ecosystem, and that will flow to the EV industry as well and to the recycling industry.
I think, sir, to your first question, which is, the challenges faced by the startup companies. The good part is if you look at, top 6 or 7 two-wheeler electric or the three-wheeler electric companies, you will find at least 2 or 3 startups there also. So that is a good sign. Though, a lot of legacy OEMs have also come in and, taken a large share of two-wheelers and three-wheelers. I think I will, being, a startup ourselves, so I think the biggest hurdles which we have been facing is, the securing the supply chain of critical metals, whether it is magnets or, cells. ये पैसे की game है sir सारी, right? So if I actually go to a supplier who is not an Indian-based supplier, and if I actually want to book his capacities, right? So I need to pay advance, for 6 months, I have to pay advance. And then after 6 months, he will start, supplying me. So to acquire that supply chain, because, a startup obviously does not have access to those funds like a legacy OEM, has been a challenge. Secondly, I will be very, upfront and honest. We have not been supported by government in terms of designing a production-linked incentive, which is favorable to startups. Today also, it is more favorable to, the companies or the OEMs or the large OEMs. And those, conditions are just, unimaginable, that the kind of conditions they are putting into avail those PLA incentives. So, sari paise ki game hai, right? If we actually get access to funds, what as a startup I can have is I can actually have access to, brilliant set of employees, brilliant set of, minds, right? All those skill set, all those innovations I am able to do. But at the end of the day, if government support us in terms of, leveraging the PLA incentives, giving even the PME drive subsidies, some better conditions to us, so that actually could have been more favorable to us. Third and the last thing is when actually we look at, as you rightly mentioned, the technology changing hands, we have to redesign. So are our testing agencies know this? That why, as Omega CK Mobility, I am bringing a new product. Why they are changing so fast? What is behind all those redesigning, reapprovals? But unfortunately, there is no mechanism to track that this new design is because of supply chain, geopolitical issues, or, obviously as an OEM, I want to enhance my performance also, but then we have to keep both the things aside and give preference where actually we start redeveloping or redesigning, looking into the, constraint related to supply chain. So these are a couple of points which came into my mind. Yeah, thank you.
So here, basically, I also agree that being a EV in the new era in the India itself, a lot of the new EV startup has come. Maybe initially 100 numbers, now maybe it has reduced to the bit shorter number also. There are the good EV startup who started from the zero and become the very good company, and some people are sitting along with us here itself. So there are a lot of the challenges definitely must be coming in this. One thing is that once we go for the kind of initial investments and when we are new in the industry, how to build the trust within the partners that I can able to develop a good vehicle and vehicle will sell in the market. Investment will become a quite a challenging, and how supplier will agree with our situation that okay, I will make the investment. And without investment, how the capacities they can block and make the guarantee that we will supply the certain kind of the numbers for the production. And in down the line, when we make the vehicle, when we make the production, the volatility of the raw material, when it varies, today we know that with the Iran war, how the plastic, how the other raw materials are behaving, lithium is also going in the other way. Such a challenging situation, the kind of the money power, maybe the startup can able to bear it. I have my own questions that it may be very tough for them to do about that. And while running the development or the production also, the maybe in the initial timing, the technology must be a quite a challenging thing. And after that, quality, consistency also can be the challenge. So these are the certain challenges EV startup must be facing it or facing it. But some of the people has done a very good jobs also, and I should appreciate that they have built India in a very good way. So these are the certain things are there. However, the second question, whatever you asked, looking the 2030 localization, supply de-risking, cost affordability, government supports on the certain PLI and other schemes, and seeing that critical raw materials also, we should have the kind of very recycling, robust structure in the supply chain, whether we can able to come out with such kind of the challenges. I am sure that with the time it will also improve and India will come as a one of the good country for the EV production with a lot of the efforts done by the EV industries, EV startups also. Thank you.
So when we talk about resilience, the two things that haven't not been mentioned is the USD INR exchange rate and the whims of the customs assessing officers. When you import raw material from countries like China, Singapore, etc., it goes through customs, whether it's cargo, ocean freight, or air freight. And it is what somebody said, sab paise ka khel hai. So, when we're talking about resilience, when we're talking about EV startups, startups cannot afford to, pay that whatever ransom is required. Your material is stuck. You have a manufacturing schedule, and the officer knows, you're checkmate, right? Either pay up or pay up. So, and then obviously the USD INR rate. I mean, this is not a single enterprise can do. I think the government needs to do something. I don't know what, but it needs to be tackled, right? I mean, the way it is happening these days, it needs to be tackled immediately.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for the insightful discussion. I'm sure we could have gone ahead more and more. We've got a lot of questions to ask, but I think time is a limitation. So I think we'll end the panel here and thank each one of you for your valuable contribution and looking forward to the best. Thank you.